Coming up, settlers in a new land, badly needing a leader, when a wondrous and unexplainable turn of events saves the life of a gallant young officer and changes the destiny of an entire nation. And when a young couple heeded a still, small voice, they saved the life of their newborn child and confronted a miracle when we return. Hundreds of years ago, a rugged and beautiful continent was settled by people from many lands, all seeking the same thing, freedom. When people pull together to achieve a dream, they sometimes find miracles waiting to help them along the way. The year is 1754. Before there was the United States of America, Britain and France competed for the rich resources of the continent of North America. The French had made a treaty with the Indians of the region and built a fort at the mouth of the Ohio River. The British sent an ultimatum to the French to dismantle the fort and leave the area. And so began the bloody and complex French and Indian War. One of the officers fighting in this war is a 23-year-old American attached to British General Braddock's staff. The young officer knew well and loved the rolling hills and green valleys of Pennsylvania, which were much like his own home in the rich farm country of Virginia. He quickly won favor with his elder British commander, and by now was involved in all strategy meetings.
The move against the main French force takes us through these hills. They're filled with hiding places the French will use to attack us with their Indian support units. Without a knowledge of the terrain, we'll never make it through.
General Braddock had learned that the young officer was often wise beyond his years.
You believe you can find someone to point the way, yes? Some local with knowledge of the terrain.
Thank you, General.
Be careful. We don't have enough young officers like yourself as it is.
The young officer enjoyed nothing better than having important work to do, even if it was difficult and dangerous, and he enjoyed serving under a leader like General Braddock. In less than a minute, he was ready to undertake his important assignment. The young colonial officer was accompanied by his scouts to find the cabin of John Fraser, a Scottish fur trapper who was loyal to the British and who had agreed to provide information and supplies to the advancing British and colonial army. But as the scouting party drew closer to Fraser's home, they realized that something was very wrong. Knowing that the man he sought had no doubt been killed or kidnapped by the French militia, the young officer was still insistent on exploring further. He felt strangely drawn to this little cabin in the woods. He saw the wrecked cabin home of a happy little family, a well-used fireplace and big bed with 2 little beds beside it, all ruined by a vicious attack. The young officer envisioned the little family that once called this their home, and the suffering he knew they had felt broke his heart. As he turned to go, the young officer wished that somehow there could be mercy for the children whose lives were ripped apart. Many would later say that it was the sorrow this young officer felt for this family's tragedy that became the catalyst for the miraculous chain of events that followed.
It's all right. Come on, boy. Put your head. Oh, there. It's all right.
You have another.
Come on, boy.
When their parents had heard the approaching French army, they had quickly hidden the boys in the safest place they could find at hand.
It's all right.
Now, both boys were nearly frozen from their long night outdoors, but their shivering was not from the cold, but from stark, blind terror. Learning that the boys' parents were dead, The officer judged that there was nothing left to do but return to camp, taking the boys as their special charges.
We couldn't see. Mama hid us under the firewood pile. But we could hear them yelling.
The young officer was moved by the stories the boys told of their parents, how they had worked together to build a life on the frontier. It spoke to him of the pioneering spirit of this new land.
I'm really sorry about what happened. But you'll be safe now. I promise.
Later that day, he wrote in his journal about the new people. They were no longer British nor European, he wrote, but a new people, discovering a new way of life, all their own in this rough but plentiful wilderness. They were not as refined as their European forefathers, perhaps, but more ambitious and honest.
I want to send the boys back to Philadelphia, as you requested.
Yes, sir. They have a grandmother there who's going to...
I know. But I can't afford to let you take those boys without some soldiers to guard you, and I can't spare the men.
Sir, let me go myself. With an Indian scout, I can have those boys back home before you know it. I can rejoin the unit then.
All right. But for heaven's sakes, hurry.
Yes, sir.
The path he intended to take would be dangerous, but he knew it would not be as dangerous as where the unit was scheduled to move next.
Sir, we're going to be staying with you now.
No. I and one of my scouts will take you to your grandmother's.
What if we get attacked on the way by the French or the Indians?
That could... Listen. Our, life to protect you. Do you believe me? All right.
Yeah, but who's going to keep you safe?
Of course, the young officer could not yet know it, but he would soon encounter a miracle brought on by the extraordinary faith of two young boys. That same day, the party headed out on the long journey to Joshua and Andrew's new home. In this new land, there were few roads, and often the shortest distance between two colonies was a straight line through dense woods. This path would have been the fastest, but it had the potential to also be the most dangerous. Suddenly, the uncanny senses of the native guide warned of suspicious sound.
We thought you were dead. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just stunned.
When the attacking Indians saw that the man they had shot was not killed, their chief ordered them to retreat. Two large coins in the young officer's pocket had stopped the two bullets fired at him.
Didn't I give these to you?
Each coin was creased by the force of the pellets that would otherwise have buried themselves in his heart. The young officer could not understand how. Both coins had somehow made their way back to him and stopped the two bullets intended to kill him. It was only a few days' travel on to Philadelphia, where the boys were united with their grandmother, Mrs. Sarah Fraser.
Andrew, Joshua, let me look at you. Look how you've grown. And what might your name be?
It's George, ma'am. George Washington.
How can I ever repay you for what you've done?
That day, the young George Washington made a vow to work the rest of his life in the cause of defending the safety, rights, and freedom of these settlers of the 13 American colonies.
Take care, boys.
15 years later, the French and Indian War had drawn to a close at last, and Washington returned to his home state to rebuild his fortune as a farmer and a businessman. Soon he would take command of the colonial Continental Army in the new country's fight for freedom. In the meantime, here in Mount Vernon, Virginia, Washington made his home and often entertained dignitaries from all parts of this burgeoning new land. One day, an old Indian chief visited the man who would one day be America's first president. The chief told of how he had led the Indian attack that fateful day so long ago. He recalled the young officer who was alone and exposed, and how he had ordered his braves to be certain not to miss when they shot at this man. But, the chief now told him, a power far mightier shielded you. Seeing you were under the protection of the Great Spirit, we immediately ceased to fire at you.
I will always remember also.
It is humbling to realize that had not George Washington been miraculously saved that fateful day so long ago, America might not ever have been free to become the champion of liberty, and the world might have been a darker place. But he was saved, against all odds, and was able to go on to be the leader of the American Revolution, a great man made still greater with the aid of a miracle.